Hello everybody, this is Stephen Alson. This is Full Time Devils. This is Full Time Review. We're doing it on a Sunday today. We just thought we'd do it a little bit different. Hope that's all right with you guys. And this is the place for you to have your say on what happened in Manchester United's game yesterday. So get involved in the comments. That's Facebook and YouTube. Get involved in the comments. We'll be reading the comments out, talking to the comments. There's three things that I want to talk to you about today. First one is McTominay. We're going to talk about his selection. We're going to talk about his performance. We're going to talk about that foul on him as well, because that was pretty horrific in my opinion. We're going to talk about Alexis Sanchez. We're going to talk about his impact on Manchester United. We're going to talk about his performance. We're going to talk about who he reminds you of as a player and what you think he's going to bring to Manchester United and where we're going to play him. We're going to talk about all that lot. Remember, get your comments in on all of those things. We're going to talk about Jose Mourinho. We're going to talk about the comments that he made in the press conference. We're going to talk about what he said about the fans. And then we're going to go to the fan cams from yesterday's game. And we're going to go to United on YouTube, where we've got Simon Presser. And we've got a little bit of a weird thing in there as well. So definitely check that out. So first thing that we're going to talk about then is Scott McTominay. Scott was selected over Paul Pogba. And we'll get deeper into this when we talk about Mourinho and the press conference. And there was a lot of people thinking Pogba was dropped. McTominay's given an opportunity. And we all knew that the press and everybody was going to focus on the fact that Pogba was not selected rather than the fact that McTominay was selected. Mourinho's out here changing perceptions about what happens with him and what happens at Manchester United with the selection of youth. He's selecting youth on a regular basis at the moment. There's players like Angel Gomez coming into the team. There's players like McTominay himself coming into the team. Rashford has played literally every single match for Manchester United. You've got Lingard, and let's face it, Pogba is still classed as a youth player for us, getting minutes on a regular basis. Jose Mourinho's getting absolutely zero credit for that. But I think Scott McTominay's coming in, and he's proven himself to be a useful squad player. I've got my doubts about his ability. Sometimes on the ball, I think he's a little bit hesitant. I think he's a little bit, gets the ball tied up under his feet a little bit. That might come with age. That might come with experience. I think there might be a bit of a ceiling on where he can probably go in the game. But at the moment, I think the performances that are put in are pretty good. He covers ground well. He works hard. And Jose Mourinho himself said one of the things that he does is he recovers the ball well. And I think he does offer a screen. So I wouldn't be surprised to see McTominay selected and featured in some of the bigger games for Manchester United this season. I thought his overall performance yesterday was quite good. I thought there was times, like I said, when he got caught in the ball, he definitely looked for a safe pass. But I don't consider that as a criticism. Roy Keane was one of the most safest sideways, backwards passes that I've ever seen of the ball. And then occasionally when he needed to, he would drive forward and try and make something happen. Now, don't twist my words. Don't say I'm comparing McTominay to Roy Keane. But there was a moment yesterday in the game where McTominay forced things to happen, driving forward through the middle. He's still young. He's still learning his game. But there is a player in there, I think, that could easily come and do a job. So one of the comments there, Latif says Scott is our new Fletcher. Not the first person to say that actually to me this week. There's a couple of people have said Darren Fletcher, very reminiscent of what McTominay did. And you know, the biggest of games, sometimes Fletcher was the right option to be bringing in and doing that sort of stuff. Let's talk about the foul. So I sit at Stretford and it's the opposite end of the pitch of where he got dropped. And I couldn't really see what happened, couldn't tell if it was an elbow, couldn't tell if it was a shoulder. All I know is that I saw Scott hit the deck and he banged his head on the floor. Now that's dangerous. Old Trafford pitch itself is extremely hard. It's like playing on a concrete with a tiny layer of grass on top of it. It's very hard. That's why you see them watering it constantly. I think that he could have been at risk of concussion when he went down, the way he went down, the way his head bounced off the floor. So for him to recover and carry on and put in a good performance on the back end of that was good. From what I've seen, how it's not a penalty, I have no idea. I have no idea what the ref saw. He was only a couple of feet away from it. I have no idea what the linesman saw. He should have been looking across the line at that sort of thing anyway. How it wasn't a penalty, I have no idea. It didn't matter in the end. The result was assured with goals from Sanchez and Lukaku. And let's talk about Sanchez then. So Alexis Sanchez, swap deal with Mkhitaryan. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh, Mkhitaryan got a handful of assists for Arsenal. So what? The performances that Mkhitaryan was putting in, at least lately, for Manchester United, weren't good enough. He'd lost his place in the starting 11 almost permanently. This isn't a player like Sanchez that had been plucked from their starting 11, one of their best players. It was a player that we no longer wanted. So getting rid of him to go to Arsenal was fine by us. We did better on the Sanchez and Mkhitaryan deal. Sanchez is a perfect Arsenal Mkhitaryan is the perfect Arsenal signing because he's someone that will do the absolute spectacular, but he's going to go missing for them at some point as well. So I wouldn't worry about it. It was a great performance yesterday from Arsenal, but I'm not fazed. We know what we've got and we're better for it. What I think that Sanchez brings to Manchester United is something that I think we've seen elements of what happened under Louis van Gaal creeping in. I think there was a lot of players like to pass into space and rather than run with it. I've seen the likes of Luke Shaw only wanting to pass when the Luke Shaw of old might have had a drive with the ball. What Sanchez does is he drives with the ball. He drives with the ball constantly. He's constantly cutting across. He's constantly looking forward. And it reminds me of a young Wayne Rooney. It's that sort of guy that you go, I don't know where his best position is. He doesn't really fit into any sort of traditional position where you can say he's definitely a number 9, he's definitely a number 10, he's definitely a winger on the left, he's definitely a winger on the right. He's Alexis Sanchez. Much like Wayne Rooney, you just sort of had to pick the team and then sort of slot him in some way. He can't be pigeonholed into a position. And much like that young Wayne Rooney, he's absolutely relentless. And on the back of that relentlessness, things start to happen. He gets a ricochet off a shin when he has got no right to. He wins a tackle he's got no right to be anywhere near. And that driving force in the final third, I honestly think could be the difference between Manchester United in some of the big games. Tottenham game aside, that was just an absolute shit show from Manchester United, tactically and performance-wise from the players. But I think in some of the bigger games, that's the guy that could make the difference for us. Right, we're going to go to Jose Mourinho's press conference in just a second. But I want you to listen to some of the stuff that he's going to be talking about here. He's going to be talking about not punishing players. He's going to be talking about the fans. He's going to be talking about all that sort of stuff. So I want you to have a real listen to what Jose Mourinho says. Give me your thoughts in the comments, and I'm going to give you my thoughts once we return. Here's the press conference.
Yeah, it was difficult because at half time was 0-0. But I think we were in control since the first minute. I think in the first half our percentage of ball possession was really high, but no goals. And then you go to half time 0-0 and you feel a little bit the pressure. So second half was important to be calm and to play and don't lose our identity and don't try to go direct when we have this kind of attacking player that is better on the passing and movement game. But then the goal arrived, and after that, even with 1-0, I felt that the game was ours because we were so much in control. So I think solid performance, even defensively. We recovered the ball high on the pitch. I think the kid Scott, he grew up with the game. He started a little bit nervous, but then he grew up with the game, and I think it was fundamental for us in the way he gave us that desire to recover the ball. So I think we were solid, and by being solid, we had the ball all the time, and we could play. I changed a few players, and the intention was not to punish anyone, because to punish anyone, I also need somebody to punish me, because we are a team, and when we win together, and when we lose together. But I made a few changes thinking about the characteristics of this game, and I think this kid has a great desire to recover the ball when the team is not in possession. Is a kid that chased the ball, that tried to recover high on the pitch, and then when he has the ball, he plays always simple, and sometimes against opponents like Huddersfield, so close and with so many bodies behind the ball, simplicity sometimes is genius. You don't have space, you have to open spaces by playing simple. So it was a decision to play the kid. But Paul came on very, very well. I think really well, with a great attitude, with the spaces that we had at that time, because then we were winning 1-0 and Paul could show his talent, his qualities. I don't feel it that way. I don't feel it that way. I always try to do what I think is the best for the team in any moment. So I prefer to look at it in the beautiful way of a little kid that arrived here with 9 years old with his mom for the first training session. 10 or 11 years after, the kid is playing in a Manchester United shirt in an important match in the Premier League at home at Old Trafford. So I prefer to look at that perspective. Paul is a fantastic player. Is no doubt for me one of the most talented midfield players in the world. But to sit on a bench one day is not the end of the world. He played on his three. Yeah, he played on his three, and he played the first at Old Trafford. And I think Old Trafford, in spite of being a quiet stadium, the pitch is big and the grass is nice, and obviously the players, they feel very comfortable playing here. But I don't want to individualize, because the attacking players, they have so much quality. I had on the bench Martial and Rashford to bring them to the game. They have so much quality that I think is easy, and in the future will be even easier for them to play together and to enjoy the game together, like Alexis did. I think he was enjoying the game. He arrived in the end completely dead, but he was really enjoying the dynamic of the team, and also the dynamic that he was giving to the team.
What do you mean it's a quiet stadium?
You know, it's not Portsmouth. I remember Portsmouth when I was in the Premier League, and such a small stadium, the atmosphere was absolutely incredible. In here, the atmosphere is a bit quiet, and there is not very enthusiastic. But the players, they like to play at home. Yeah, his character is this one, no doubt. He's a fantastic player, but he's not a prima donna. He's a humble guy. He's a humble guy that doesn't forget where he started, and I'm pretty sure that when he was playing in Chile, he had difficult places to play and difficult opponents, and I think he's quite used to. Then the referees in here, they are on the pitch. They have to analyze the game and to make their decisions, and that's it. We have to live with them. Yeah. Is between him and Paul, and I think Paul was a nice guy to him. I think understood that for him would be important to score, and let him take the penalty. I don't think it's a dream goal for Alexis. Every player prefers to score a penalty without a save and the second ball, but also show his attention to detail, his reaction and his desire. So for me, that's fine.
Delaney, any news on his injury at all?
He had a surgery this morning. I don't want to be very specific. I would prefer the doctor to give you some information officially that you can put in our website. But it's not the end of the season, not at all. It's a small intervention in his external meniscus, and I want to believe that by the end of March he can be back, and if he's back by the end of March, I hope we have big April, big May still to play in more than one competition.
Right then, Jose Mourinho's got some excellent points that he spoke about there. We are absolutely going to talk about the atmosphere and what can be done to improve the atmosphere at Old Trafford. Remember, get your comments in below, and I'm going to be reading some of those out in a second. But let's talk about the other stuff that he said. So he said he didn't drop Paul Pogba, or he didn't pick his team. Essentially, he's talking about Pogba, to punish any particular players. This is an interesting point that I haven't seen picked up by the press anywhere, because it doesn't suit the press agenda anywhere. But I think this is something that's worth talking about here. It says, if I do, as in, if I do punish players by dropping them, he goes, I also need someone to punish me. We are a team. Talking about the result midweek against Spurs. I think this is a really interesting point from Jose Mourinho. I think that's Jose Mourinho almost admitting responsibility for some of the performance, maybe some of the result against Tottenham. I think he's saying clearly, I've done wrong and I need punishing there as well. if you believe that I'm dropping players on the back of that sort of stuff. So I think that's a very, very interesting line from Jose Mourinho that I haven't seen the press pick up on yet. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Then he mentions he goes talking about McTominay, and he goes, instead of, again, dropping Pogba, he prefers to look at it from the perspective of a young player coming through. I think that's exactly right. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Jose Mourinho is getting the credit that he deserves for bringing through some of the academy players that he's bringing through, because everybody, myself included, didn't think Jose Mourinho was going to do that, but he's doing it. So I'm absolutely delighted with that aspect of what he's doing at the club at the moment. We always could want more, couldn't we? But there is essentially nobody in the Premier League that's giving more minutes to academy players than Jose Mourinho. But you won't be reading about that in the press. It doesn't suit their agenda. Especially when we've got other managers doing what they did this weekend. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Right. Then he mentioned the atmosphere was a little bit quiet. And again, I think this has been twisted by the press a little bit, because he didn't come out and start talking about it first off the point. He was asked about it and he sort of answered it sort of on a side topic. The fact it was the 60th anniversary of Munich, or the closest game to the 60th anniversary of the Munich disaster, I'm not sure played a part into the atmosphere at all. It's quite poignant at the start. Obviously, we had the minute silence. I actually thought, at least where I'm standing, it was a pretty good atmosphere yesterday. Clearly, that's not translated around the stadium. Stretford End Tier 2, where I am, is always quite loud, always quite rocking. Everybody stands, and everybody kind of knows each other because it's the same people there week in, week out. I think there's a pretty good atmosphere in the area of the ground that I'm in. I do understand that that is not the case everywhere. Singing section is all right, but then K-Stand's getting really hammered by stewarding at the moment. North Stand and South Stand are an absolute wasteland for any sort of atmosphere getting together. And I think there's a lot of things that Jose could be saying here. I don't think he had a go at the fans, but I think in his position as manager, one of the things that he can be doing is urging the board to do stuff, whether that's publicly or privately. I think he could come out and say something, or maybe he probably couldn't come out and say this, but he could definitely have a word with the board about this and tell the board to stop making people sit down. Jose, the stewards are telling most of the ground to sit down every couple of minutes. That has an impact on the atmosphere. And what's funny is they do it against the likes of Huddersfield. If we drew Real Madrid in the Champions League, they wouldn't ask you to sit down. But sometimes it's against those teams like Huddersfield where the crowd needs to turn up, because the crowd's always going to turn up against Real Madrid or City or Liverpool or Arsenal or somebody like that. It's against those smaller teams where United do need the help of the crowd a little bit sometimes to be a bit more lively. And those are the ones where the stewards come down on you and they're really ruthless in terms of trying to get people to be sat down. So if it's allowed in the bigger games, why can't it be allowed in the smaller games? I think we could also maybe speak to the board. They're never going to reverse these decisions, but two of the worst decisions by Manchester United board in recent years is, one, to put executives in the middle of the Stretford End. Can you imagine the Kop taking out 40% of the very centre, the very, very centre of the Kop to put in executive seats and business people on day trips? That has absolutely killed the atmosphere in the Stretford End. That's why where I am, the Stretford End Tier 2 is probably louder than the bottom of the Stretford End, because you've only really got Stretford End lower that's able to get any atmosphere going, because you've got the padded seats in the middle, the executives. On the opposite side, K-Stand, the other stand that used to get all the noise coming from it, they've now got the disabled section going right across the front of it. Of course, I support disabled fans' rights to be at Old Trafford, but even the disabled fans will speak to you. Like we have young Alex on, we speak to his dad, and he said the location is not ideal for people in wheelchairs. You've got them sat at pitch side. Old Trafford's pitch is very high compared to those seats low, and they can't even see the pitch, what's going on there. It was terribly thought out, it was terribly executed, and it's going to absolutely massacre the atmosphere behind the goal where you want it the loudest. That's not because disabled fans aren't as passionate, of course they are, but there's just sheer numbers involved here. There was 2,800 seats that have been removed, and they're going to be replaced by 300 disabled seats. It's not enough people. It's almost 2,500 people less. So they're not going to generate as much noise, even if they wanted to. That short-sighted planning and thinking from the club of just dumping things right in the centre of the most atmospheric sections of the ground has attributed to the deadening of the atmosphere in Old Trafford. Yes, you've got J-Stand up in one of the corners opposite the away fans. That does get a little bit of noise. But when Ed Woodward comes out and he says everything he does is to improve the atmosphere at Old Trafford, that's incorrect. And I cannot agree with him at all. I'm 0% in agreement with him that everything that he does is to improve the atmosphere. Now, how can we improve the atmosphere? Away games, Manchester United are the loudest in the country. I think every club would accept that. One of the reasons that United are one of the loudest in the country at away games is because it's essentially unallocated. Now, I know that's not legal. I know that's not how it's meant to go down. But if I'm in Block P and one of my mates is in Block F, we're going to go, well, I'm going with you or I'm going with you. We're not going to go and stand separately. And I think unallocated seating or standing with your mates is one of the reasons and one of the ways that atmosphere gets generated. I think you've also got to get more young people in. When the Premier League was first formed in 1992, they conducted a survey which looked at the average ages of season ticket holders, and at Manchester United the average age of a season ticket holder was 23 years of age in 1992. You fast forward 25 years and the average age of a season ticket holder has gone up 22 years. So essentially it's the same people are now just that much older. There's not enough young people coming into Old Trafford together with their friends. I've got an 11-year-old son. He comes to the match with me, he comes to the match with his dad. I don't envisage a time when he's going to be able to go to the match with 5 or 6 of his friends, like I did when I was 16 and like most of our parents did when they was young. I don't see a way in for that. The only way that's going to happen is if the club actually makes some sort of program, excuse me, some sort of program where they make that happen, where they allow young lads to be given discounted tickets, unallocated seating behind the goal, and yeah, literally, let's let them get drunk. Let's let these 18, 19, 20-year-old lads get a few beers in them, cheap, in the ground, create an atmosphere behind the goal, and let's get it up again. Because I know Manchester United, there's a commercial aspect in this. You want to be able to sell Old Trafford as the noisiest, most passionate ground. You would love to be able to do that. You can probably do that by having a little bit of common sense and stop ripping the heart out of our noisiest stands. Jose Mourinho, you can probably have an effect on that as well. You can stand up and say these sort of things. And I would also encourage Jose Mourinho to come out and urge Manchester United to take the lead in safe standing. Safe standing is going to be what transforms atmospheres from the theatres that we're looking at now back to football stadiums. And that's about it, really. Unallocated seating, cheaper tickets, jobs are good one. Right then, we're going to talk in a minute about the fan cams. I'm going to read some of your stuff in a second. Sonny Scott says I'm in K-stand. After 5-10 minutes, the stewards telling everybody to sit down. Usman says the ticket price is too much. I agree on that pretty much. There definitely could be cheaper tickets. United's atmosphere is better than Arsenal's defender atmosphere. What? Someone's asking what safe standing is. Safe standing is rail seats in place of the seats that we're in at the moment. Because like I said, I stand every game. And it's not safe to stand where I stand every game. The seat only comes up about 30% of the way up my shin in front. I could fall forward. Everyone can fall forward. So safe standing does need to be introduced because everyone stands. If it's all right for J-stand to stand, why isn't it all right for K-stand to stand? It's not right. The stewards are dictating and the club are dictating who gets to stand and who doesn't. And that's the problem. Alexis needs protection. We'll get into that in a second as well. Alexis is getting fouled more than any other player. United needs to look at what's going on in Germany, says Peter. I agree. German atmospheres are fantastic and German clubs work with the fans groups really closely to generate atmosphere. But one of the reasons why that's effective in Germany is because they've got the 50+1 share rule. So 50% of shares plus 1 share have to be owned by the supporters or a supporters trust in Germany, which gives the fans voting rights on what happens in the club, which means that when they want to put the ticket prices up, if the fans don't agree, that doesn't happen. If they want to move the stadium or change the colours or rename the ground and the fans don't like it, that doesn't happen. There's a lot of good things that's going on in Germany at the moment. All the money is in the Premier League, but actually a lot of the initiatives that are doing really well are in German football. And that's why you see Bayern Munich, even for a big club, has got reasonable ticket prices and a good atmosphere. And you see Borussia Dortmund, arguably the best example. The yellow wall at Borussia Dortmund is absolutely fantastic. And that's because it's largely a supporters-owned club. More of that, but I don't know anyone. Have any of you got a spare couple of billion to be able to get the Glazers out? I don't know how we're going to do it. Right then, let's have a look at the fan cams. Let's see what all the lads had to say at Old Trafford after the game against Huddersfield yesterday.
I think we've still got a lot to learn. Sanchez is far superior to the rest of the things we've got. There's only Lingard that's got any pace that can match him.
Statman Dave, got any stats for me?
Alexis Sanchez.
won the most tackles for Man United, completed the most dribbles on the pitch, had the most shots on goal. The main man, right?
What about lost the ball?
Not a lot. I'm going to say not a lot. I'm not going to quantify that one because that's for me, you know, not for you.
It's a treat to be able to walk down the road, chucking it down the rain, freezing cold. Walking to Old Trafford is a great privilege. You know, not got to forget that.
It was frustrating, to be honest with you. It was hard, but we never expected anything.
You score, though, would you?
No, we haven't scored in weeks. We're never going to score.
The win was not at all convincing. The team has to gel still.
I did think that it was really nice to see Scott McTominay come in. It showed that Jose, if for whatever reason he's going to drop someone, he's shown that youth players are going to get that chance.
Still more improvements need to be made.
What do you think those are?
New left back, new centre back.
Luke, you don't like Luke Shaw?
I like Luke Shaw, but
ref, man. I thought in the rules of the Premier League that if you're not a good ref, you have to go down a league, innit?
Oh, and they've done well today, the club, by putting your stuff out, which is something what you can keep. You know what I mean? So. Sad day, innit?
An education for the younger ones as well.
Of course, it's an education. A lot of people don't know anything about it. These young kids who are running about here haven't got a clue about Munich, but in times to come, they'll be told.
Lukaku got the goal. Other than that, I thought he was awful. You know what I mean? When he come off, we looked a bit better. The fluid front three, I think we need to try that a bit.
Yeah?
Definitely, yeah. I weren't impressed. My first half, I think he touched the ball twice.
Alexis just looks nuts. Like, the turn he's got, without him, obviously we look a lot different, but with him now, I think we just got the potential to be potentially nuts going forward.
Yeah, first I just want to thank Arsenal, obviously, for another great player, another player in his prime. So I just want to start off with that.
Can I just mention this? Arsene Wenger refused to sell us Matthew Debuchy. You know that?
No, I didn't.
Do you remember when Van Gaal wanted Debuchy and he refused? But you give us Sanchez and Van Persie.
I mean, I think Sanchez should play more in the attacking midfield area. Pogba should sit back with Matic, and then you got Martial and Rashford out on the left and right. So
I thought McTominay, he looked good. You know, young lad coming in.
Even after that challenge on him as well, he picked himself up and kept going.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, good day all round.
Right then, that was what everybody was saying outside Old Trafford after the game yesterday. If you want to get those more in depth, then make sure to go and check them out on this channel as soon as you finish this video. So a couple of the points that was brought up there. Dino was talking about having a really fluid front three. I think you've got to pair that with a really fluid midfield three. I'm really not a big fan of 4-2-3-1. You guys let me know in the comments, do you agree? Is the formation fundamentally a problem for this team? Again, let me know what you think. Dean was talking about Sanchez and the impact that he's had on Manchester United. As I said before, I'm really intrigued in seeing what Sanchez can do as we get into the latter stages of the Champions League, because I think unless there's a catastrophic collapse at City, which I just don't think is going to happen, then I think the league's more or less gone and we are looking at fighting for that second place spot. And then there was a lot of praise for McTominay. A lot of people really seeing the positive side of the McTominay performances. What do you guys think? I'm going to start reading some comments out in a second. 4-3-3 is what we need, says Alex Anderton. A Pogba chant would be nice, says David Bell. I'm not sure that's the massive thing about that, but we need to put more crosses into the box, says Peter. Yeah, the first goal obviously came from a cross from Mata for Lukaku, and it was an excellent finish, and I really think Lukaku thrives on the back of being crosses from the byline that he can get onto going forward. I think when he stops and has to come backwards, I think he loses all that momentum, and I think that's a real issue for him to change it around. Arsenal only have one chance, says Enready. Wenger out. 4-3-3 says Dragon. 4-3-3 says Akil and Shivank. There's a lot of people agreeing with 4-3-3. Pranesh says it's the best formation that suits United. Gary Smith says 4-3-3 if Pogba plays. And Matt Infinity says, is Pogba making the... Lukaku making the grade? Well, is he now on 20? Was that 19 or 20 that he scored yesterday? And we're talking, what, first week of February? I think he's been a success so far. There's been chances he's missed. I think there is issues with where he's playing on the pitch. I think there's issues with getting the ball to him in the right areas, but I think he's been pretty good so far. Moses says, well, I think the enthusiasm of Sanchez, the other players need to step up. Maybe it's that sort of... it bleeds into other players when one person's doing it like Sanchez is doing, where he's really getting after it and all that lot. Anthony says a three-man midfield with Fellaini, Matic and Pogba. I don't think it's good on the floor to be honest. But yes, I can see what you're saying. McTominay is a solid 7 out of 10 player, says McLaren. Huddersfield tried to intimidate him, but he didn't care. Huddersfield tried to intimidate everybody. If you look how many times Sanchez was fouled, how many times they tried to foul Matic, how many times they tried to foul everybody that was on there. I mean, there was some genuinely horrific tackles that went flying in, literally flying in from Huddersfield yesterday. Obvious tactics was to go with that. Wasn't a fan of it, to be honest. 19 Lukaku is on, says Adil. Thank you for that, mate. Back to good old 4-4-2, says Adand. Again, that leaves you with a midfield 2, which I don't think suits Manchester United ideally, to be honest with you. Right then, we have got United on YouTube coming up very soon. And make sure you listen to the very last line of this because it'll blow my mind. And then we've got something for you to go and watch. Right, take it away, United on YouTube with Simon Preston.
Manchester United 2, Huddersfield Town 0. Not the most vintage performance from Manchester United, but at the end of the day, it's 3 points and that's exactly what we need. Alexis Sanchez scoring on his Old Trafford debut at the Trafford end. Absolutely fantastic. Lukaku getting the opener in that one. The loss to Huddersfield Town early in the season up in Yorkshire left a bitter taste in our mouth, but it's good to get one back on them this season, and if we play them again in the FA Cup, my, that will be very sweet indeed. So up next we have Newcastle United away at St James's Park. Hopefully we continue this winning train going and keep up those clean sheets. Other than the Tottenham game, it's been quite some time since we've conceded a goal in all competitions. So come on United, let's go, let's get some wins and build some more momentum. And just before we go, just to remind you all that on my channel I have a video where I interviewed the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, so please check out the description below. The lads from FullTimeDEVILS will drop the link to that video, so please do check it out guys, really appreciate it. Thank you.
The FIFA president, not the game, idiots, the actual president of FIFA. Go and check that out. We'll throw the link in the description below so you can go and see Simon's interview there with the president of FIFA. That's a bit of a coup there. Nice one, Simon. If you want to get involved in United on YouTube, this is the place, this is the video, and anyone can get involved. Send us a video. All the details for how to do that are in the description below this video, so if you want to send us, and we would love you to, then that's how you do it. Let's talk some of the comments then. We've got, oh, it's just gone off the screen. It was a great comment that I've just lost. Sanchez will be good when he settles in with other players, says Ron. Reynald says Lukaku would have scored 20 plus Premier League goals under a Fergie style of play. I'm not sure that's the case, mate. Here's the thing. Lukaku has had about half as many shots this season as Harry Kane. That's not because he's gun shy. He's just not had the ball as much in those areas. And he's on about half as many goals. Well, he's on more than half as many goals. So I think there's a case to be made that if you give him more ball, he's going to score more goals. Very simple. Rashi more completely deserves it. Well, I think Rashford went for a bit of a dip in form, which is to be expected of a player his age. I think he's been used fantastic so far from Jose Mourinho. Bob says no other manager can take on the top job at United. Jose has the pedigree. And Debanjan says under Mourinho no player will flourish. Look at Mickey now. Oh, right, okay, so one good game for Arsenal means that Mourinho was entirely wrong, was he? Okay, mate, okay. People are talking about that dog banner, got removed by stewards at half-time. Hearing that a betting company might have done that. I hope that's the case. I hope it wasn't fans that did that. Jose wants Justin Kluivert. Yeah, we saw that a little bit of a rumour kicking up today. When are we going to score from a corner? Do you know what, mate? I don't think we've took a good corner since the Champions League final in 1999. I don't remember a good corner since then. It's been terrible, hasn't it? I was hoping Sanchez might be able to deliver something on that front because I don't think he's much use in the box, considering the size of him. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So thank you guys for joining. Make sure to go and check out all the matchday coverage from yesterday if you've not seen it already. All the fan cams from all the different faces. Go and check all of those out. We'll be back this week with more content every single day as we normally are. But thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Make sure to hit the notification so you get a notification every time we go live because YouTube doesn't tell you anymore. I don't know why it's doing that. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in a bit.